We're going now to the acting Prime Minister, Sepuloni, as the Prime Minister is en route to London for the King's coronation. It's a pleasure to have you here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Right, I want to start with the changes, the tweaks, so-called tweaks that have been made to the clean car discount. So obviously there'll be more money for your EVs and things like that, but it is paid for somehow, and that is by increasing the tax on the utes. How much extra is your average ute owner, your average farmer or plumber or whatever, going to have to pay?
Look, I think it's a couple of hundred, maybe 300 extra. From memory, I could be wrong there, on the tax that was put in place to be able to subsidise electric vehicles. But this is really important. You know, we've seen widespread take-up of electric vehicles because of this scheme. It's helping us hugely with respect to our carbon emission reductions. And, you know, it's superseded what we expected in terms of the level of success for this scheme.
Yeah, but you're not putting that all down to the scheme, are you? Surely not. You're not going to try and claim credit for it. I mean, the price of petrol's gone through the roof. That's why people want EVs.
Well, it's a combination of things, but certainly the subsidy has supported with regards to the take-up of the vehicles.
All right.
We always knew, because they were new, and with new technology there is the expense that follows, that it was going to be hard to transition New Zealanders away from cars that use fuel to electric vehicles. And we've achieved more than what we had anticipated.
Okay. Let's talk about so you said roughly $200 or $300 extra for like farmers who have no choice but to buy utes because of how far away they live from any charging station, but also the terrain which they are working on. Why is it fair? Can you talk directly to them this morning? Tell them, why do they have to pay $300 extra when they've got no alternative?
Well, I think keep in mind it's not for existing vehicles. It's also not for those
but
that
for new ones.
Yeah, for new ones. And so people are not buying a new ute on an annual basis, Ryan, so it's not an expense that they can expect to have to endure in an ongoing way. And so it is a one-off when they buy a new ute, you know, and it's the way we designed this scheme so that we could pay for subsidising electric vehicles so we could encourage the take-up. Certainly there's farmers, tradies, this has all been mentioned, you know, they're more likely to use utes because of the need for their type of work, and we understand that. We're hoping moving forward that the technology will improve as such, in such a way that perhaps down the track, and it's not unrealistic to expect this, that electric vehicles may be able to be used by those that currently have to use utes, and the technology should advance at some point in time. But it was the way the scheme was designed.
Yeah, you designed it though, didn't you? And you've just said that we're hoping and perhaps, and the technology should advance. Sure, it's a one-off cost, but farmers are feeling squeezed at the moment. It's an extra $200, $300 they otherwise wouldn't have had to pay. And if you're a farmer who's sitting on your farm and you need to replace your ute, and you're looking at some Aucklander driving around in a nice brand new electric car, knowing that it's your money that's gone to support that, it's going to be parked in some garage in Herne Bay, you'd be pretty peeved off, wouldn't you?
Oh, look, there's also a number of New Zealanders, and we see a lot of these in Auckland too, who are driving around with utes in Auckland, where they're not necessarily needed for practical reasons. Sometimes they are, but they're not necessarily, and hopefully this will persuade them to actually move to electric vehicles, and I think we are seeing more of that.
Would you look at a rebate for farmers then? If you can prove you're a farmer, you can get your money back.
That's certainly not something that I've had a discussion about.
Is it something you'd consider though?
Well, I'm not the lead minister on this. I'm certainly not going to add to his work program today by having
reasonable?
A discussion about something on air that we haven't even talked about or put on the table as a cabinet.
Does it sound like a reasonable thing to you though, given what you've said?
Well, I'm not going to make that determination or judgment when it's not something that we've had put on the table or even had a discussion about.
All right, fair enough. Are you going to pledge your allegiance to King Charles?
Well, certainly at this time, we are part of the Commonwealth, and so that is something that we are doing. And our Prime Minister is heading over there for the coronation to celebrate the new king, and so of course it's a given.
Do you think everyone in Labor Party's caucus cabinet will be happy to do it as well, or do some people disagree with it? Because there have been people emailing us this morning saying, actually, I'm not comfortable with it.
Well, I think that there are a number of New Zealanders, not just within our caucus, but a number of New Zealanders who have talked about the idea of New Zealand becoming a republic at some point in time, and those conversations will be ongoing, but there's no plans to become a republic at this point in time. And so whilst we're not, then yes, we do have to, and I do, pledge my allegiance to the King. That's the nature of our constitutional arrangements and how we're set up.
Yeah, but ideally, are you a Republican, I guess, at heart is what I'm saying? Would you prefer not to have to do it?
Well, I'm not a hardcore Republican. I'm probably someone that's a bit on the fence who does think that at some point in time we need to become a republic. But it's not front of mind for me as a priority issue right now, so not something that I'm going to be campaigning on internally within the Labor Party or out there in public.
Fair enough. I think I'm a bit like you. I'm a little... It's sort of ambivalent to most of it anyway. Let's talk about Kiwis moving to Australia. Obviously, conditions there have improved somewhat for Kiwis living across the Tasman. And productivity is the biggest reason, we are told, the experts tell us that productivity is the biggest reason that they earn more than we do. They are more productive with an hour's work than we are. What is the one thing your government will do about it?
Well, if we look at individual sectors or professions, we have moved to increase things like pay rates for nurses and teachers and others. Fair pay agreements are really important for addressing the terms and conditions of employment for New Zealanders so that they are getting paid what they deserve because, let's be honest, that's a key part of it. Also lifting the minimum wage annually, which we have committed to, so that New Zealanders are getting paid fairly. So there's a lot that we have been doing to address this. New Zealanders, for a long period of time, have moved to Australia.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but none of that has anything to do with productivity. What are you doing about productivity?
Well, in general, to be honest, Ryan, when I came on the program, we were talking about, I was looking at my notes and you wanted to talk about how we stop the exodus or stop people from moving to Australia. So these are some of the points that I wanted to cover off.
Yeah, but
pay is key.
The main point, surely someone would have told you that the main point is productivity. The difference between our two countries is productivity.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the information on that, Ryan, so I probably can't speak to it as thoroughly as you'd like me to.
No, that is fair enough. I appreciate you coming on the program, as always, and we look forward to having you again. That is the Acting Prime Minister, Sepuloni, with us this morning.